Keeneland, every moment matters.
And welcome back, everybody, to the first edition of the 2026 Thoroughbred Daily News Writers Room podcast, presented by our friends at Keeneland. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I didn't. I went to Mexico and I got COVID over Christmas.
What?
Santa was not kind to me.
We know you like to go retro, but COVID? I mean, come on, Bill.
I think I got the El Chapo strain, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought you got other things when you went to Mexico and drank the water. I didn't know you would get COVID. I'm Randy Moss, by the way, with NBC Sports. I did not have COVID over the holidays. I did not go to Mexico. I stayed up here in snowy Minnesota while Zoe was traveling all around.
I was building an ark, to be perfectly honest. Zoe Cadman with First Racing here. Yesterday was the first day. It has not rained since Christmas Eve. We've been absolutely flooded out here in Southern California, but no COVID. No COVID whatsoever.
All right, guys. So as we start off 2026, let's do it on a positive note. Let's talk first about what makes us optimistic about the sport in the year ahead. And we can jump around a little bit about this, and I'll try to keep my remarks brief because I don't want to steal the thunder of my two respected colleagues. But I think the thing that I'm most optimistic about is the fact that so many stars are returning to the racetrack in 2026. I mean, the list is something that we literally haven't seen, the type of list we haven't seen in many, many years, topped, of course, by Sovereignty, who will be named Horse of the Year coming up shortly. Journalism is coming back. Baeza is coming back. Forever Young is coming back. The Japanese star won the Breeders' Cup. Don't forget about Tappan Street, who looks like he's going to have a very promising 2026 campaign. And I'm also very excited about the opening of the new Belmont Park on September 26th. It's something the New York Racing Association really needs, and I think it's going to usher in a wonderful fall for our friends out at Belmont Park. Zoe?
That's a good list. That's a very, very good list, and that gives me reason to be optimistic. I think the broader spectrum of optimism would be that fatalities are at an all-time low, which is something we do need to see. Kentucky and New York are obviously booming. The sales are booming. Field sizes are up for 2025. They were a little bit up. We'll get to the downsides in just a moment. But there's a lot of good things to look forward to this year in 2026.
Yeah, when I looked at our rundown and saw that we were going to be talking about this, the reasons to be optimistic, this is going to sound terrible. It's going to sound like a negative Nelly, but you had to think really hard in the state of the sport right now about, okay, what can I be really optimistic about? So I think I'm going to sort of reframe that a little bit. What I'm hopeful about,
there you go.
Right? I'm hopeful that Sovereignty and Journalism and Baeza and Forever Young all stay healthy, that Sovereignty stays in form, that he continues to run the way he's been running. I'm hopeful that Sovereignty captures the imagination of the public. I'm hopeful that even though the Triple Crown this year is probably going to be the most dysfunctionally organized Triple Crown in the history of the series, with the Preakness at Laurel and the Belmont at Saratoga again, that we get another Sunday Silence easy goer type rivalry or something to really get the public all fired up. I'm hopeful that we don't have any big injury outbreaks that we're always on pins and needles about in this country. I'm hopeful that the opening of Belmont Park goes well and that it's everything that it looks like it's going to be. I think I'm also hopeful that the business aspect of thoroughbred racing continues to be stable. Okay. It was up 3% last year in terms of average daily handle, which is the most important metric, more than total handle. Who knows how CAW factors into all that? We'll get to some of that later. But I'm hopeful that continues to be stable as well. So there are reasons, I think, to be hopeful. I hope.
All right. not to be Debbie Downers, but we do have to talk about some things that make us pessimistic about racing in 2026. And I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, so I'll let myself go last because again, I don't want our panel to trip over one another. So I'll start with you, Zoe. What makes you pessimistic about this sport in 2026?
We'll hear from a brilliant interview with John Sikura a little bit later. Pessimistic. I'm hopeful to get some help out here in Southern California. John pretty much said that everything there is to say about that. HISA has been great, but it will be nice for them to unburden some of their massive charges on other things other than smaller racetracks. I would like to see every track in the country have no paid admission and hand you a program on the way in. I think we shouldn't have people pay to come and see it. You don't pay to go to a casino. Pessimistic. Something's got to be done about the CAW wagering. I know they're trying and we've made small steps toward it, but it's driving out just the regular retail people. Handle was down. Apparently purses are down. Maybe that's just around the whole country because I know they're not down in New York or Kentucky. So yeah, a bit of a Debbie Downer there for me.
Yeah.
Randy?
Purses are down in total purses.
Yes.
But because there are fewer racing days because of the contraction of the foal crop and some tracks closing and all that, actually the average daily purse is like 350,000. It's up about 3% along with the total handle. But unfortunately, I think everyone involved in the sport would understand this. When you look at the lists, there are a lot more reasons to be pessimistic right now in the sport than there are to be optimistic. It's just a fact. It's one of the things we talk about all the time. How can we turn this around? And John Sikura will have had a lot to say about it. How can we get that train steaming in the opposite direction? The CAW thing with the horse players is huge. And all I see are baby steps. I don't think the sport is serious about tackling that problem. The fact that they've handed the CAWs the proverbial master keys to the treasury that nobody else has, right? Because the racetracks themselves are owners of the CAWs. Okay, so I don't think they're really serious about that. You've got, hopefully, God forbid, this doesn't manifest itself in 2026, but you never know. I mean, there right now are dark storm clouds over Gulfstream Park and Santa Anita. Arguably the two leading winter racing venues in the United States and two of the top racing venues, period. Right? I mean, we've got to do something to try to turn that around. South Florida is going to be a huge challenge. Again, the Triple Crown. I mean, you've got the Preakness Stakes this year, and you can't do anything about it. They have to remodel Pimlico, and they're doing that, and 3 cheers to them. But for this year, taken alone, the Preakness is going to be at Laurel. They're going to do the best they can. Laurel is in no way equipped to handle the second leg of the Triple Crown. So they're going to do everything they can to make it as good as possible while Pimlico is being rebuilt. But, you've got 2 of the 3 venues of the Triple Crown in other locations. You could go on, but,
Please don't. I was feeling happy.
Right, so this is why I regret going last. You guys stole everything that I wanted to absolutely say. But Randy, I do want to add on to a couple things that you said. First of all, in all due respect, you and I read the Equibase numbers that came out yesterday through somehow through a different lens. And I looked at the total handle being down 2.1% for the year. Doesn't seem like a big number, but 6 of the last 7 years handle has fallen in this country. According to the calculations I've done, when it peaked in 2003, if you factor in inflation, handle is down 57%. The outlier was 2021, which doesn't count because it went against the COVID numbers. And I agree with you 100%. The biggest problem and factor in this is the CAW play. And this is an issue that this industry has to start getting much more serious about fixing. I also want to add something about the Triple Crown. And I do agree. Maryland Racing, especially the new team, they're trying very hard, but Laurel is not going to be a good place. But I also worry about the continuing, and you and I and Zoe, we've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast over the years. I worry very much about the continuing deterioration of the Triple Crown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sovereignty. I do not blame Bill Mott or Godolphin at all for passing the Preakness. This is what modern horses are trained. But I'm telling you, this horse would have won the Triple Crown if he had run in the Preakness. Now, that's hypothetical, of course, but that's my opinion. And it's sad to see that, God only knows when we're going to see, horses of the major magnitude run in all three legs again, especially as there once again, doesn't seem to be any efforts underfoot to change the spacing of the three races.
From New York.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to one and all. The TDN Writers Room is brought to you once again by Keeneland. It's the start that sets you apart, the marketplace that drives results. A new year brings new opportunities, and the Keeneland January Horses of All Ages sale, which begins on Monday, January the 12th. It's the trusted marketplace where buyers can begin the year with confidence. Aligned with the start of the season, the sale offers exceptional access to broodmares, broodmare prospects, short yearlings, and race horses. It's the ideal moment to set the tone for the success ahead. Now, here's just a little appetizer. If you would like to buy Tiffany Case, she is the dam of nitrogen who's been an Eclipse Award nominee. She is for sale in foal to none other than Not This Time at Keeneland January. It's the place to be. We'll be right back after this message from Keeneland.
We do this so your granddaughter can work on a farm someday. So the stands will still be packed in 50 years. That's why we come to work every day, obsess over every single detail. Because the story of racing is written one moment at a time. And the future of our industry deserves nothing less. Keeneland, every moment matters.
The fastest horse of the week is brought to you by the Fast Sires at One Star Farm. And the Sire we're spotlighting today, Straight No Chaser. There are fast horses, and then there are championship fast horses. And Straight No Chaser was chosen as 2024's Eclipse Award champion male sprinter after his victory in that year's Breeders' Cup Sprint. He also won the Riyadh Dirt Sprint in Saudi Arabia, the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, and he ran 6 furlongs in a stakes record 108.27 to win the Maryland Sprint. Good for a 107 buyer. All that is why his trainer Dan Blacker called Straight No Chaser the fastest horse he's ever been around. And for that championship speed, Straight No Chaser standing at WinStar for a fee of just $10,000. Now, a Friday first level allowance at Oaklawn Park would be an unlikely place to look for the fastest horse of the week, but the 4-year-old colt Stiglitz continued his upward trajectory with a 6.5 length victory Friday, running 6 furlongs over a track not particularly fast in 108.85 for a buyer speed figure of 107. Stiglitz has had 15 starts, but 3 races back at Keeneland, he ran a career high 88 buyer. He followed that up with a 94 at Churchill Downs, and that set the stage for Oaklawn and what almost certainly will be the fastest race he ever runs. Stiglitz is the son of Spun to Run. He's part of the Eastern String of trainer Phil D'Amato. He's owned by Agave Racing's Mark Martinez, his longtime ownership partner Robin Hoffos of Rockin' Robin Racing Stables, and Evan Trump.
Now we welcome in our Gainesway guest of the week, and it's a formidable, very important person in the industry. It's John Sikura, the owner of Hillendale Farm at Xalapa. And tons to talk about with you, John. But first of all, I want to bring up a letter to the editor that you wrote recently for the Thoroughbred Daily News, which you expressed your concern about the future of California racing. It should be noted that others have that 6 California races, including the Kilroe Mile, have been downgraded. Kilroy went from a grade 1 to a grade 2. But I have to play devil's advocate here. Without them getting slot machine revenues, which, certainly doesn't look like it's going to happen, what's the answer? What's the solution?
Well, it's a hard question. I mean, I think it's a multifaceted approach. I think in the short term, we need purse supplementation of graded stakes. And you could argue, well, everyone should be self-sustaining and do it on their own. But it's really not an argument that is valid or truthful, because all of the racetracks now that offer these significant purses and, the merit of grade 1 races and graded stakes, let's be frank about it. It's only achievable because of the alternative revenue of either historical racing or casinos. So it's not like California has been inefficient. They can't figure out what to do, and everybody else is a genius. The windfall of this historical racing has been the answer to Kentucky. And if anyone would doubt that, turn the clock back 10 years ago. Would anyone be racing at Turfway Park? Did anyone race at Ellis in the summer? The answer is no and no. So how do we go about remedying the problem? I think there's few approaches. The first one is short term, because we need to fix it today. And my idea was for the Breeders' Cup to supplement these purses, to work in collaboration with the Graded Stakes Committee to say, we're in a different era. When Jimmy Kilroy and racing secretaries that were full professionals had to evaluate the quality of competition, the opportunities. The doctrine was about quality and how do we ensure the credibility of these graded races. And it was a real sort of significant and hard thought process. Now we have these short fields. We have a lot of issues that are sort of a consequence of VLT supplemented purses offered to only a few tracks. So, I'm going off tangent a little bit, but I've always been a huge critic of the fact that the Breeders' Cup keeps $100 million of nominators' awards for, quote, a rainy day fund. My joke was that, if you think the flood was bad for the Noah's Ark, in order to have a rainy day fund that needs $100 million, we've never seen a torrential flood of that epic proportion. So that money, while, I might be a loner in the minority as far as my critique, I don't believe the founders of the Breeders' Cup, in their original statement and their mission, was to have $100 million invested in the stock market. And when you have current crippling issues in our business that are affecting the validity of, breeding programs in states and maybe even the existence of some markets, that money, in my strong opinion, should be put into use to help the thoroughbred industry. And if there's a cause more important than the survival of California racing, I'm not sure what it is. And, the original Breeders' Cup founders had a purpose for generating money and supplementing purses at racetracks around the nation. And if someone doesn't believe that, just look at the founding statement. Now, the money doesn't go there. And I think it's wrong. And, I think to modernize the Graded Stakes Committee and how they evaluate racing has to take that into concern. Now, you can set criteria. What a second part of this is the proposal that I had made to the Breeders' Cup. Let's supplement the Grade 1 races, make them 500,000 each of them. Let's restore Las Virgenes, the Sandy Oaks, other races to a Grade 1 status. Have a moratorium on downgrading races for 3 years, okay? And for those 3 years, that hopefully would give some time and a spark of enthusiasm to come up with the solution in California. Obviously, it's a legislative one on historical racing. There's challenges because of Indian gaming, et cetera. And how do we tackle that? I think the fact that that you have this boost, you have this supplementation, you have this bottom underneath you for 3 years, really gives an incentive to somebody to try to work out a solution. The industry is contributing. There's a sunset on this contribution. They're giving us a chance to renew California racing. And here's what they've done. I think you can go to a legislature, you can go to California breeders, you go to horsemen. A lot of people say it's not just talk, it's action. And, actionable solutions to recognize causes is what distinguishes the critic from somebody that wants to have a solution. So, if you look at this, I was out for the San Anita Oaks. The race was, I think, 200 or 250,000. Plus, they had a Fasig-Tipton sponsorship. It's a ridiculous purse for a major Kentucky Oaks prep. And while they might not have 8, 9, 10 horse fields, try to beat the best horse in California, any race, a maiden race, a 5-horse field, you're not going to beat them. California are arguably at least as good a quality of racing and horsemanship as anywhere in the nation. Has proven itself again and again and again. And I think it's neglectful to just walk away and say, good luck, I hope they can figure it out. Because without historical racing, we'd be facing the same problem, if not worse, in Kentucky. So, we dodged the bullet. Everybody worked hard to pass legislation. Legislators, well, many were reluctant, agreed to historical racing. They opposed slot machines, and were able to get something done. So, I thought that was a viable solution. It's one that they haven't acted upon. And I think the response is, well, we think money is better spent somewhere else. But I would disagree with that fully. I think that after 42 years of operation, if the Breeders' Cup loses money in 2 consecutive years, they're not doing a very good job. I think that, profit is an imperative of free enterprise system. And you have to look at your expenses. You have to look at how we run our business. And the fact that we feel we have to invest $100 million because the dividends for that investment offset our losses, I think is evidence of an inefficiency and a lack of nimbleness that, an entrepreneurial approach would have versus a sort of, quote, corporate entity. And, I know that might sound harsh. I know they're all good people, and I'm not disparaging any of them individually. But I know in my business that if we lost money every year, I would have a new direction. I would have a change. And if I could do something to promote the industry that sustains my business, that would be my number one priority. And I would take action. And I would like to see a poll of members that contribute to the Breeders' Cup. I pay more than $1 million a year between stallion fees and nominating fees. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you agree with $100 million essentially being taken out of the business so that we can fund our losses? I think it's an indefensible position, and I don't like it. And I don't know that there's a lot of support for that, but the Breeders' Cup was founded with the idea of championship racing and contributing huge purses to ensure the best horses from all over the world compete, and that we reward the very best horse. And in my mind, there's several categories where that is not being done.
John, let me jump in here for a second because I want to bring Zoe in on this conversation. Zoe, obviously you are a California-based correspondent, and California racing means the world to you. What do you think of what John has just said, and what do you think of his ideas?
I think it's great. I mean, I'm not sure I could have said it much better myself, to be perfectly honest. The industry needs to stand up for California. It's like we're on an island out here. And John, I think you hit the nail firmly on the head. I mean, what would the landscape look like without California racing? It's a huge industry, and I don't think the rest of the country truly realize what California means to the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think like most things, what's the Joni Mitchell song, Pave Paradise, Put Up a Parking Lot. That happens at Santa Anita, I mean, it'd be devastating to the business. And just think of, I mean, I was at San Anita last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever the opening day was.
The day it wasn't raining.
The glory of the mountains, you can feel the tension, you can feel the trepidation, you can feel the uncertainty there. And it's very sad. But in all of that, you still have a backbone, you have a location, you have a sense of history that doesn't really occur anywhere else in the nation. And I know it's hugely important. And if someone says, well, that's California, you know how much money California spends buying yearlings, if that's your only consideration. You know how much money Californians buying shares in stallions that they own farms here. Like it's hugely important. And to the lore and history of our business, it'd be like no more New York Yankees. You know, we've changed our name and we've moved. And, you know, these traditions, these memories of the past are, yes, important, but they're only important if we make them current and they're valid today. If it's just looking back in black and white, you know, everybody's dead and we don't race there anymore, it's really it's a shallow memory, you know. And I know the money is there. You know, I sort of challenged in my proposal to say, whatever you raise, I'll raise the same amount of money in 7 days. I mean, all major farms, all major racetracks, sales companies understand this issue. So who has approached, for example, Keeneland and say, Keeneland, we want you to sponsor pick the race, the Las Virgenes. It's $250,000 a year. It's a 3-year sponsorship. Same with Fasig-Tipton. What about Coolmore? What about Juddmonte? What about major racing? What about stud farms? The money is there to do it ourselves. And again, between the Jockey Club and the Breeders' Cup, I'd like to know, maybe it's insular and it's not public, what are the funds that they have on account? What are those funds doing for the business? And do you feel you're doing enough or you should do more? Now, they've championed HISA, and I think it's hugely important from a reality point of view, and more importantly, probably from a optic point of view, that, you know, that we're making sure that horses are drug-free, that they're sound, they're taken care of. Yes, there's been some problems in implementation as expected, because you can't go from no oversight to full oversight and not have missteps. So I get that. But, all right, now that's done. Let's move on to cause 2, to fix number 2. It's not, you know, that again, it sounded maybe like I was ungrateful, but I read that they're having a stimulus program to take mares that have never been bred in 2 or more years or out of production for 2 or more years, and we're going to waive your $265 registration fee. And isn't that an unbelievable idea? And industry leaders quoted as saying, this is brilliant. And how, like, in perspective, you put California on one side and you put this issue on the other. How many more, are you going to produce 60 more foals? Right? And what about California racing? It's ridiculous to even think as far as severity and effect of the business, that they could be even mentioned in the same breath, you know? So,
and I think you alluded to this earlier, John. The idea of the Breeders' Cup supplementing stakes races is certainly not unprecedented. We can all remember back in the late 80s and through the 1990s, there were dozens of races around the country. You might have had the Las Virgenes Breeders' Cup Stakes or the Azeri Budweiser Breeders' Cup Stakes. They were sponsoring races all over the place. So it has been done before.
Yeah, well, 2 things. One, those races were eliminated, but there were Breeders' Cup races all dispersed amongst all racetracks all over the nation to sort of show that we're all in this together. And then secondly, as I said, founder statement that one of the purpose of the Breeders' Cup would be to take profits from the Breeders' Cup and distribute it to supplement purses and other racetracks. And, you know, I would argue that the Win and You're In, the millions of dollars spent every year on Win and You're In, is a gift to the wealthy who don't need the gift. And if you're a true sportsman, which is this is the business we have. It's my horse versus your horse. I don't need free admission for me to come and race my horse, So personally, if everything is great, I understand. We have such a surplus of funds, we're even going to make it better. We're going to say if you win, you don't pay the nomination in a specific race. But if you're losing money holding your event, first of all, that for me, I can't make sense of it. You imagine the Super Bowl losing money? This is our 42nd Super Bowl. We lost $1 million.
Yeah. By the
John,
way, I think we've seen
go ahead, Randy.
I think we've seen a glimpse of this. If I heard correctly, when Bill introduced you, he described you as formidable. Do you consider yourself formidable?
I wouldn't say formidable, but I think you always do a disservice to your clients, to your friends, to your family, if you're not candid and honest. And a lot of people are maybe taken aback by someone who will express what they believe is the truth or what they believe is a concern. But the viability of our business is about addressing what's not working, what has to be more efficient, what has to get better. Anyone that just wants to, quote, be nice and not come up with a solution, well, look at Kmart. Look, there's a lot of businesses are no longer in business, and we face that possibility that we don't want to turn into a probability long term. I mean, how many people recognize Thoroughbred racing? How many people go to the races? How many people bet on the races? We should have a quest to make our sport as relevant as possible. Social media, all of the things that kids do and see, making it easier to bet on your phone, making jockeys, trainers, people stars. Like, if you can do it with the Housewives of LA, I think you do it with Thoroughbred racing. I've always thought that in order to get close, it's an intimidating sport. How do you bet? What's a trifecta? How do I do a wheel? It's very, the gambling, all part of this business can be intimidating. So, but let's make it easier. So at the Breeders' Cup, again, I'm not trying to single them out, but I felt strongly that all significant races, and particularly in the Breeders' Cup, that jockey, trainer, owner, everyone should be mic'd up. You should hear. I brought Marshawn Lynch to the Breeders' Cup, and 1,000 people want to talk to him and sign his autograph, and the officials would look at him like, how did he get in the paddock? Let's get real. He has millions of followers.
We've tried to mic everybody up, John, and we're still trying, and you wouldn't believe the resistance that we encounter.
And what the resistance is, at the Indy 500, you listen to two guys from Alabama talk about how the tires are and we're running good here, we're hot, and people are glued to the television. But you don't want to hear, Mike Rapoli or Baffert or why wouldn't you want to hear and see and feel part of it? I feel like I'm in the paddock when I have that access. So for me, the intransigence to some of these things for me is beyond belief, and it's probably why I feel so frustrated about our, quote, institutions that I think are like cruise ships. They're slow, they're not nimble, they don't turn, and they don't listen to their customers.
It's back. This week's edition of First Things First. And who should I talk to? Let me think. How about Nate Newby, the big boss at Santa Anita Park?
So Nate, it's not raining.
So yes, we're very excited to look up and see blue sky and no rain, that's for sure.
Talk about what led into the decision to push opening day originally, because it wound up being a massive success.
Yeah, it turned out really well, but obviously stressful when you see a lot of rain in the forecast. And we know on the 26th, it's such a big day. We get so many fans that come out. We really want to put on our best possible show. And miserable weather and off the turf and all that. And plus 40,000 people in a building is not this, that's raining and kind of an older building. It's not the easiest thing to pull off. So we were happy to see we had good weather 2 days later. The fans and everybody responded really well with the change. We had over 40,000 people on track. So it was a great day on track. And seeing Santa Anita on an opening day with 40,000 people is amazing. It's the best energy and really started the meet off well.
I can attest to the fact that it was absolutely brilliant, but what has happened in the interim?
Then we got more rain. Mother Nature's not being friendly right now, but so we had to adjust there. We lost some racing days. We got some makeup days coming up. So the good news is the next 2 weeks, we see no rain in the forecast, and we've got 9 days of racing in the next 2 weeks. So we go Thursday through Sunday this week, and then Thursday through Monday with the holiday Monday the following week. So a lot of racing coming up, and we're going to get it back.
What can patrons and horse players and fans really look forward to with this upcoming meet? Because I'm calling it upcoming because we've only ran about 3 days.
Yeah, we're just getting started. And that's part of the thinking too, is, you pick your spots on when you want to run and want conditions to be good. We have a 6-month meet. Talking to a lot of the trainers, they're getting to the point now where it's just, you're going to pick your spots, and in a long meet, you want to run when the weather's good and the track is good and we're on the turf. So we're looking forward to getting back to normal Southern California, great weather, good racing at Santa Anita. The good news is the turf course looks absolutely amazing. 10, 11 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks and not being used that much. It's a very happy turf course, and it's ready to put on a good show for the next 5.5 months.
Thanks for your time, Nate. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Zoe.
Many thanks to Nate. Just a reminder that we will be racing a 4-day week this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then the following week, Thursday through Monday for Martin Luther King Day. Join us at the Great Race Place. We can absolutely guarantee some sunshine. I promise you, no more rain. John, can we switch gears and talk about Hillendale at Xalapa and Thorpedo Anna? I just want to know what made you delve in and say to yourself, I'm going to buy her. And then once you got her, a piece of her, say, I'm going to buy the majority interest in her and we're going to run her some more and then we're going to breed her. What went into the discussions about Thorpedo Anna?
Well, when I initially heard that there's a possibility she could be sold, I was intrigued initially that the price was beyond what I thought was a commercially viable proposition. Was able to strike a deal. And then how I bought more is, have you ever been out and you've had 3 drinks? Next thing you know, you have 7 and say, I was only going to have a couple of drinks. And you say, how did I do this? And, now that I was in, the 10% owner decided to sell his interest. Well, it'd be hard to take a stranger in as a partner on an investment of this significance, a mare of this importance. And, I bought more and, we're here we are. So, try never to be fearful. Once you're in, and you have to figure out how to make it work and make the best of it. Certainly, she's uniquely achieved. I believe that she'll be champion older mare this year. Was she as good as last year? Probably not, but I don't see a viable alternative. Certainly, I'm not making those comments to canvas for her, but I think she's the most accomplished of fillies and mares this year. We owned Glorious Song in the past, and I've had not unanimous success, but a lot of success with high-end mares. We owned, Better Than Honor, who's Brood Mare of the Year. So I think quality and uniquely accomplished mares have a higher incidence of producing sales horses, stakes horses, and can be significant producers. So I was a huge fan of her. Thought that the way she would gallop to the front and keep on going, and as brilliant as she was, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but Kenny was hard on her. She danced every dance, and he knew his filly and mare well because she always responded. Well, I thought you just don't see mares like her. She's sort of a generational talent, and some people had sort of knocked her pedigree. And I owned the fourth dam, and deep down her pedigree is, a taproot, one of the most significant pedigrees in American stud book. So I think she has enough pedigree. Her performance is unique, and she's a big, pretty mare. And we're going to breed her a gun runner who's arguably one of the 1, 2, 3 very best sires in the land. So we're excited about it, and you never know the outcome. There's a lot of uncertainty, but the whole business is uncertainty, and I've always tried to live my life.
John, hold on a sec. John, was it a hard decision for you? You call yourself, you are a commercial breeder. How hard was it for you to go to gun runner and not your own stallion, Curlin?
It was a bit of a debate, but just looking at sort of 2025 alone, and some of the trends and the opinions of our partners, I said, let's breed the gun runner this year. Hopefully we'll breed the Curlin next year. And it's not a disrespect or comparing one horse to another, but we thought that was our best chance and our best decision for this year.
John, some great insights, and we've taken up way too much of your time, but there's one more question I have to ask you. I guarantee it's going to bring a smile to your face. Tell us all about your son, Jess, and the announcement that he has been appointed the new director of Bloodstock. And I would guess that he's perhaps the heir apparent at Hillendale.
Yeah, no free rides at Hillendale.
No, there's not. I don't go on social media, so I don't read comments because I don't read that stuff. But some people had said, that everyone else got passed by over your son, and how are they going to feel? And there's two things I would say. One, there's no one else here that's in Bloodstock other than me, so he didn't pass over anyone. And if I didn't think he was the best person for the job, I wouldn't let him in the office. He has a passion for the game. He's great with people. He's respectful. He recruited and was solely responsible for many millions of dollars of our November consignment this year, which made us the leading consignor for the second consecutive year at Fasig-Tipton. And I feel he's extremely bright, hardworking, great with people. And, as we all have some sense of bias, I'm proud of all of my kids, and they all do their own thing, and I'm sure they'll all be very successful. But I think he was the best candidate for the job. I think he's going to be immensely successful. And yes, my hope and thought is that Hillendale will be a generational business conducted by, sons of the founder, and that we're going to have the word legacy. I don't mean it to be arrogant. I don't mean it that way, but just people that have been here generationally. My father started in the business and, took it to one level, and, my goal has been to take it to a next level. And my hope is that one or more of my sons together will accomplish what I've accomplished and accomplish more on their own. My youngest son's very interested. He's a hockey player. He's committed to play hockey at West Point. So he'll be tied up in serving and playing hockey for a while, but he's very keen and up to date. My middle son's a finance major and has got a major job at CIBC Bank in Wisconsin now, and I want him to come to the business as well, but he wants to sort of pursue his own independence initially, and said, Dad, I want to create for myself. If I come back, I want to do it after I've explored all my other options and opportunities, not just go work for Dad. So Jess had the same opportunity. He went away to school at Millbrook in New York, and he worked for Todd Pletcher. He's waited tables. He's a worker, and I've said I'm a good example where you can be limited in ability but have an unlimited work ethic, and those are two things that make you a success in this country. And I'm proud to be here. I'm a Canadian by birth, but essentially an American, and lived here a long time, and that's why I'm so passionate about the business, the challenges that face us in that, I've been lucky enough to have things beyond my wildest dreams and beyond my abilities and meet people, Vinnie Viola and Mike Rapoli and Bob Baffert and, Terry Green, so many people I know that I'm close with. I wouldn't meet in any other business. So how anyone is not vehemently defensible about this business and stand up and what can we do is, that's strange to me and offensive to me. And sometimes I probably maybe come across, a little bit too, I don't know if aggressive, but it's just heartfelt that, look at what we're all doing and what we would be doing if there wasn't a horse. And, the TDN itself has, in my opinion, I know it sounds like a plug. You didn't tell me to say this, the world's, greatest publication of our business. It wouldn't exist. Zoe's on TV and, everybody is doing things because of this business. I think we have a responsibility to leave it better than when we came. And if you're being objective and fair and you looked at the last 20, 30 years while we've been in the business, we've seen a contraction, we've seen a decline, we've seen issues come up that have happened sort of on our watch. Now, could we necessarily have done anything to affect some of these challenges? Maybe yes, maybe not. But I think fairly say that Jockey Club, Breeders' Cup certainly have a financial wherewithal and a sort of an appointment of authority, either appointed by themselves or by the industry, sometimes a little of both, to say, let's do something about it.
John, I got one more question. And Sue, I can see you rolling your eyes at me right now, Sue Finley. One quick question. If you could have dinner with anyone, past or present, who would it be?
In the thoroughbred business?
Any single person, past or present.
Anyone's. Oh, that's a hard question. I'd say Leonardo da Vinci.
Ooh, that's inspired. I like that.
Wow. Why?
He created things that timeless masterpieces, all out of his own head. And
all right,
to be in the presence of that genius would be awesome. But you could add many.
One's good. One's good.
Others.
That's great.
Yeah.
Guys, we've taken up way too much of Mr. Sikura's time.
No, my time's good. I don't want to take up your time. It's probably boring. You're going to have the least watched podcast in the history of doing this. Well, and I'm going to have more hate mail than I've ever received, but I'm kind of used to it. But I think I would end it just by saying this. I think all my criticisms are constructive. I think when I point something out that I think is wrong, it's my job to have a solution or a suggestion. And you can accept them, you can reject them. But if someone is an honest critic, they're not doing it to be self-serving, they're not doing it for publicity, they're not doing it for financial gain. It's how I feel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John, so much.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Guest of the week, John Sikura, brought to you by Gainesway, a home of what they like to call the Fab Four. If you're keeping score at home, that would be Muth, Seize the Gray, Charge It, and Tap It Trice, all second crop sires with their first foals hitting the ground in 2026. Muth was the only stallion to retire in 2025 with grade 1 victories as a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old in the American Pharoah and the Arkansas Derby, respectively. He earned almost $1.6 million. And on the strength of that record, Muth bred 185 mares in 2025. And Muth stands this season at Gainesway for a fee of $30,000.
Say hello to Muth. The single most important factor in predicting sire success is those who have consistent, high-class form, and it's even enhanced if they have that form as 2-year-olds as well. By our calculations, Muth has the #1 chance of sire success of any of the 30 or so sires that retired to Kentucky in 2025. He has the credentials that we're looking for when we predict sire success.
The Pennsylvania breeding program is the best program in the country. The stallion awards, the owner bonuses, also the restricted races and the stakes races for Pennsylvania breds. This year, 8 breeders are on track to earn over $200,000 in breeders awards, and 2 could hit the $1 million mark. We have the best program in the country. Take advantage of the fantastic program that we have.
Learn more at pabred.com.
Among our longtime sponsors, the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association, the PHBA. On December the 30th, Angie's Reward won the $75,000 Misbehavior Stakes at Parks for PA sired and bred 2-year-old fillies. So congratulations are in order to her co-breeders, Win Oaks Farm and owner breeder Warrior's Reward. And as you might surmise from that, Angie's Reward is a daughter of Warrior's Reward. Meanwhile, Pennsylvania's 16th annual stallion auction will take place from January 12th through the 18th online on thoroughbred.com. As of today, seasons are available for 63 stallions from Pennsylvania and 5 other states. We mentioned earlier the Fab Four at Gainesway. They're all on the stallion auction list, and more stallions are being added daily. You can see that current list of available stallions by going to pabred.com and clicking on the Stallion Auction link. And you can address any questions you might have to Brian Sanfratello at 610-444-1050.
Well, some very sad news in horse racing just to begin the year. Diane Crump, who everyone, I think, who listens to this podcast knows, was not only the first female ever to ride in a parimutuel race, but also the first female ever to ride in the Kentucky Derby, died after a long illness. And by the way, again, to toot our own horn, if you haven't read T.D. Thornton's piece in Monday's Thoroughbred Daily News, not only about Diane Crump, but about the pioneering female jockeys of her era. It's a must read. It is absolutely something that you have to. But Zoe, I mean, obviously you were the one that I need to throw this to. She was well before your time, but you in and of yourself were a successful female jockey. How much do you well, it's a stupid question because I know you respect them, but tell me your level of respect for Diane Crump and these women who broke down these barriers to make it possible for the Zoe Cadmans of the world to succeed.
Absolutely huge. Without the likes of Diane Crump, Barbara Jo Rubin, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be talking to you guys. And honestly, TD's piece in the TDN would have my vote for an Eclipse Award next year. It is absolutely brilliant. It tells a story that I hadn't heard about Diane's first mount and how she originally wasn't supposed to be the first woman to ride. It was supposed to be someone else, and the jockeys all refused. It's just a fabulous story. Ron Turcotte, Angel Cordero refused to ride against Diane Crump. And after the race that she finally got to run, Ron Turcotte came up and shook her by the hand, which was lovely. You've got a story about Danny Gargan, the father now of trainer Danny Gargan, offering to lend him her tack so she could ride. Unfortunately, he was killed as a young jockey at the age of 31, I do believe. But it is truly a fabulous piece to read. And it just gave you a little bit more insight on how hard it actually was to even make the entry gate. Her first mount, she never even got the bug weight because somebody's wife said, I want that girl on my horse, and named her that morning. She didn't even know about it. So that was her very first mount, just because the wife said, hey, put her on. I'm going to give her a shot. I feel bad for her. And honestly, she was a very good rider. She might not have won 1,000 races. I think she only won about 200, but back then that was still a lot. And she could hold her own. So kudos to her. It's sorry that we lost her so early at 77 years young. Feel terrible for her family, but she really was the absolute pioneer. It's time for the Work of the Week. The Work of the Week is brought to you by First TV. It was Tappan Street, the winner of the 2025 Grade 1 Florida Derby. He's one of the top candidates for the January 24th Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup at Gulfstream. He worked a half mile for trainer Brad Cox at Payson Park on Saturday in 49.3 in preparation for the $3 million race. I do not think there is any way this horse could have looked any better or gone any easier. He looked absolutely fantastic. He's been sidelined for 9 months after his Florida Derby win, and Tappan Street returned to the races on December 19th with an allowance win as the 1-10 favorite. We'll be right back after this message from First TV.
Be a smarter better with First TV. The best horses, with thousands of exclusive morning workouts. All at your fingertips and delivered right into your inbox. Everything you need to be informed. Be smart. Bet smart. With First TV. All the thrills. Fraction of the bills. Experience the power of the partnership. Change your life, make new friends, and compete at the highest level of thoroughbred racing. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Visit westpointtb.com.
So obviously this is the time of year that horsemen begin thinking about not just the Kentucky Derby, but also the Kentucky Oaks. And West Point Thoroughbreds and partners certainly have the Oaks in mind for their Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner, Super Corredora. She is at Santa Anita working toward the Las Virgenes Stakes on February the 1st. But that's not all. West Point has another 3-year-old filly to watch. Her name is Counting Stars, who last month scored 2 impressive stakes victories in 13 days at Oaklawn for trainer Mark Cassidy, the most recent being a 6-length romp in the Year's End Stakes at 1 mile. Her first race around 2 turns. She's a daughter of Honor AP. In future weeks, of course, we will keep you up to date on those fillies and other West Point Thoroughbred stars.
Well, once again, I want to thank my team. It's so good to be back with Zoe Cadman and Randy Moss. I want to thank John Sikura, our Gainesway guest of the week. Also want to thank the people that work behind the scenes to make this show go, and they do a fantastic job. That's Sue Finley, Katie Petruniak, Anthony LaRocca, and Aaliyah LaRocca. Once again, Happy New Year to everybody, and let's hope that 2026 is in fact a very good year for the sport of horse racing that we all love. Talk to you guys next week.